Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Hirsch, and today I am going to be doing my cultural diversity presentation on China. I'm going to touch on the nutrition, some major foods, a daily menu, and some of the traditions for the largest country in the world. I'm going to start with a little bit of an overview of China. They're located in Eastern Asia, and they are currently the most populated country in the world at 1.425 billion. This is super close to India. India is getting pretty close, and they might surpass China in a few years, but currently China holds that number one spot. They are a main hub for business with the world's fastest growing economy, and they're a very cultural and tradition centered country. They have many traditional holidays that are celebrated not only in China but around the world. The first is Chinese New Year, which is December 10th of this coming year. It's the beginning of the new year on the Chinese lunar calendar. Next, we've got Tomb Sweeping Day, which is April 5th of next year. This is where Chinese family members pay respect to their ancestors. It is called Tomb Sweeping Day because of the tradition of traveling to your ancestors' tombs to sweep them clean. We also have the Ghost Festival. This is celebrated in July, and this is the belief that the gates to the afterlife open and allow spirits to roam the earth around this time. Then we have the Mid Autumn Festival. This celebrates the biggest full moon of the year. And lastly, we have the Lantern Festival, and this is celebrated during the first full moon of the new lunar year. And during this time, people create lantern designs to have a tribute to someone or as good fortune for themselves. And overall, there is a little bit of influx of Western influence in China, notably on the cuisine, which I'm going to talk about later in a peer-reviewed article. I'm going to start off with the foods that have cultural significance. Surprisingly, foods could be categorized as yin yang foods. I had never heard of this before, and this is very interesting to me when I started doing research. The yang foods, these are the foods that one may consume freely. These are the ones that are good for you. For example, we have a list over here to the left. We got some fruits, some grains, that kind of thing. And then we have yin foods, and these are the ones that they eat in moderation. We also have many regions throughout China, but notably the two I wanted to focus on are the Cantonese and the Sichuan groups. And here I have a little bit of a breakdown of some notorious foods from those two groups. We have the Cantonese cuisine that's located in southern China. We have more mild foods, got some chicken, rice, that kind of thing. And then we have Sichuan cuisine, which is in South Central China. And that's more of the spicy foods, notably Kung Pao chicken, which can be found even in Western restaurants. Next, we have some of the major foods and their sources. Many of these are the leading agricultural groups in China, both crops and animals. So first we have rice. This is definitely by far the most consumed food every day in China. It's mainly grown in southern China. And next we have noodles, also a very popular dish, a side dish in Chinese foods. These are served in soup. They can be stir fried or served with vegetables. And then we have pork. This is the most commonly consumed meat in China and can be found in many everyday recipes. Then we have tofu, which is a great meat substitute. And this is served in soup, salads, and stir fries. We also have eggs, which can be steamed, boiled in soup, and fried with vegetables. Then we have some leafy vegetables such as cabbage, spinach, lettuce, or cauliflower. We have a few more major foods. Let's start off with some of the spices that are either native to the region or that are used a lot. We have chili pepper, white pepper, red peppercorn, star anise, cloves, turmeric powder, cinnamon, paprika, and spice powder. These can all be seen in everyday dishes. And we have some of the fruits and vegetables that are native to the area. We've got fruits like the pomelo, lychee, kumquat, and vegetables such as cabbage, bok choy, mustard greens, and snow peas. While all of these may be found around the world, I feel like this is the most common area we're going to see them in. And to the right, we have the Chinese food guide plate that they are still using today. It says from 2016. This is also currently using. It's kind of like the My Plate here in the United States, but they have different groups. They have dairy, fruits, and vegetables, which are the same, but the other two groups are fish, lean meats, eggs, and soybeans. That's the first one, and the second is cereals, tubers, and legumes. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about some traditions and their food, as long as I'm going to show a daily meal plan. So on the left here, we have a typical daily meal plan. Breakfast would include cooked rice vermicelli in soup with shredded chicken and bok choy. Lunch would be steamed dumplings in choy sum. Dinner would be cooked rice, pork bone, and lotus root soup with fish paste stuffed tofu and stir fry celery. So here we're seeing some of the foods that I had talked about in the previous slide, especially the rice, which was the most common dish in China. And to the right, I have three of the festivals that I mentioned at the beginning. First, we have Chinese New Year. Chinese New Year, that is the celebration of the Lunar New Year for the Chinese calendar. Some notable foods are dumplings, rice cakes, and Eight Treasures rice. These all are eaten all the time, but most commonly eaten and specially prepared on the Chinese New Year. The Mid-Autumn Festival, this is by far my little favorite dish that I learned about in this presentation. We have moon cakes, and the Lantern Festival, we have rice dumplings. For health beliefs, we have the Chinese Food Guide Pagoda. It's kind of like the food pyramid, but more native to China. It focuses on eating a variety of foods with cereals or grains as a staple. It helps us balance eating and exercise to maintain a healthy weight, as well as consume plenty of vegetables, milk, and soybeans. I found it interesting that they focused on soybeans because that's not necessarily something we prioritize in our food guides. It also talks about consuming an appropriate amount of fish, poultry, eggs, and lean meat, as well as reducing salt and oil and limiting sugar and alcohol intake. Some of the dietary concerns, they have the Healthy China 2030, and their three top goals were to limit salt intake, limit daily edible oil intake, and daily free sugars intake. With the increased production of processed food, rapid urbanization, and changing lifestyles that the Western culture is kind of bringing to China, that's increased these certain items in foods, and that's something they want to limit. Here I have some food taboos. These were very interesting to me because I hadn't heard about, I don't think, any of these before. The first I have, it is that it is taboo to cut a pear among friends and relatives because the words for cutting pear in Chinese have the same sound as the word separated does in Chinese. The second is two chopsticks must never stand upright in a bowl of rice. And the reason is because it looks like incense sticks standing in sand, which is traditionally a tribute for a dead person. The third one I have is not drinking alcohol without giving a toast first because it is bad luck. Don't eat the last piece of food. It is considered selfish. The last piece of food traditionally goes to the eldest at the table. So if you're not the eldest and you take it, that's seen as selfish. The last is don't flip the fish if a fish is presented hole on a plate. Don't flip it over to get the meat on the other side. It symbolizes in tradition the flipping of a boat, which symbolizes bad luck. And then I would talk a little bit about cultural competency. As a nutrition professional or future nutrition professional, we must always keep into consideration that not everyone is of the same culture, ethnicity, or picks foods for the same reasons that we do. There are many factors that go into choosing a food, such as social, cultural, and psychological factors, and even like the consumption of a food group more than one another person may be dependent on a culture. It is also important to consider when talking to clients or other people you work with that language might be a nutrition education barrier. It is important to take that into consideration, and it is really important to have resources available for these other individuals, as well as multicultural training, because you don't want to give someone of a certain religion a food they can't eat in their diet. The study that I found on the Chinese dietary pattern was actually an ongoing prospective cohort study comparing the Western diet and the traditional Chinese dietary pattern. It had 28,751 participants from age 18 to age 65, and they found that over, I believe it's been 50 years they've been doing this study comparing the diets. They found that there was a 65% increased risk of obesity and weight gain associated with the Western diet pattern as compared to the Chinese traditional dietary pattern. And after doing some research, I had 3 questions that are just some food for thought. The first was, what resources are available to nutrition professionals in the United States that are specific to Chinese nutrition and culture? For example, I had a very hard time finding even any set diet plan for traditional Chinese culture that was in English. And I would love to see more resources available in the United States for not just Chinese culture, but all cultures in general, for nutrition professionals to have those food plans. The second one was, what aspects of the Chinese everyday meal plan should we adopt in our own daily diet? And 3 was, Chinese food in the United States is very Americanized and not always authentic. Why do we think this is? And just to summarize everything and wrap it up a little bit, China is a country full of strong culture and dietary patterns. With the increase in processed foods and incorporation of Western nutrition habits, China's food landscape is ever changing. And regardless of outside influences, China maintains their traditions and uses food as a way to express family connections and celebrations. As nutrition professionals and future nutrition professionals, we should become familiar with their culture and nutrition customs in order to better serve and understand our patients in the future. And I just have my references here, but thank you all for listening.